Hi everyone. It is with great pleasure that we share our research about unearthing the patterns inside CU's graduate admission process. Let me introduce the team. It's me, Santosh, and we have Abhiram, Niranjan, and Saijish. Let's move on to the agenda of the research. So, here we'll be talking about the problem statement and research overview, and then we'll move on to the dataset understanding. Then we'll be talking about the exploratory data analysis that we've performed. So we have done 3 EDAs, and they are here. And then we'll move on to the hypothesis testing, and then we'll conclude. So, we'll talk about the problem statement. So we started this research with a question that, like, can we derive uh, the master insights about the master's degrees admission by analyzing application trend and admission ratios. So we also have tried to try to answer some questions like from this research. So they are like, is there a consistent increase in master's degree applicants over time? Then what are the predominant master's courses attracting applicants to CU? Has the significance of standardized test scores in admission changed post-COVID? Finally, is there a noticeable difference in admission ratios between residents and non-resident applicants? How did we do it? Let's see. So we started by analyzing the data using EDA, and then with which we were able to frame some of the hypotheses that we saw on the earlier slide. So also, like, we have tested these hypotheses, so using statistical testing methods, and utilizing these insights, universities can provide more in-demand courses, and also students can use them in choosing courses like which aligns with their preference, like that has more popularity. So we'll move on to the next slide, which is dataset understanding. So here we'll talk about the dataset a little bit. Uh, so we got this data from Office of Data Analytics at CU Boulder Tableau dashboard. And since our research mainly focuses on the master's degree, like we have applied filter for master's degree. And this data set covers from 2011 to 2023. And uh, also, like, this data has there might be a possible bias in that data due to higher proportion of international applicants. So let's see some of the key columns which we have utilized in this research from the data set, like which is admit status, and which is the status of the application, and level of graduate study, and residency, like which is student applicant is resident of Colorado or not, and bachelor's GPA, GRE scores, and the majors. So next, the exploratory data analysis part will be covered by Abhiram.
Thank you, Santosh. So as Santosh mentioned in the previous couple of slides, we have shortlisted a few columns which we are going to be using as part of the EDA process. So the first EDA that we want to do is to figure out what exactly the trend of applicants look like. Since we have our data over the last 10 years, we'll be looking at the trend since 2011 and going all the way to 2023. On the leftmost side of the graph, you can see that the data, which we had about 5,162 applicants in 2011, but this number has risen continuously over a period of time. And from 2020 to 2022, we see like a 50% increase in the number of applicants from 6,400 to like about 9,000. But in the end, in 2023, you do see a slight dip as well. So going behind some of the possible reasons for this is from 2020 to 2021, there's a huge demand. People wanted to come to US to pursue a master's degree in any of the STEM fields. And in 2023, there could be a slight dip because of certain macroeconomic factors like recession and the Ukraine-Russia war as well. Talking about now that we have seen the trends and all those things, now we want to see the admitted and enrolled ratio that's on the right-hand side. Until 2015, it's more or less same. The admitted ratio and the enroll ratio, it's like around the 40% mark. But since then, it looks like the admitted ratio has had a significant uptrend, whereas the enroll ratio has had a downtrend since then. It could be because the number of admits CU has been pretty high, but the number of acceptances have been pretty less at CU as well. So again, this can be due to certain macroeconomic factors, so on and so forth. Going on to the next ETA that we have in store for us is What exactly are the popular courses at CU? Do they play a role in the number of applicants coming into CU as well? Over the last 3 years, we have seen a huge rise in the demand for technology and STEM-driven courses. So it's no surprise seeing computer science and data science on this list, which together contribute about 30% of the applicants. It's surprising to see data science up there because that course was just launched in 2021. So of the top three courses contribute about 38% of the data. And out of the 73 graduate majors offered by CU, literally 10 of those majors contribute about 65% of the applicants. So it's surprising to see a few courses here and there. You would expect an MBA or a business analytics to be up the list, but it looks like aerospace takes the number 4 position. This is probably because CU is very well known for its aerospace courses. So moving on, we'll be covering another EDA, which gives you a sneak peek into some of the test scores and standardized scores, post which we'll be talking about hypothesis testing as well. For this, I'll pass it over to Niranjan.
For the next EDA, we're going to look at the influence of standardized test scores that are GRE and GMAT on the admission decision. Look at the first graph, which gives us the information of the ratio of students who submitted their test scores since 2011. Up until 2020, the ratio was high. Almost 70% of the students submitted their test scores. However, it went down to just 13% by the end of 2023. Why did this happen? Because a lot of universities, along with CU Boulder, made test scores not mandatory. And so, yeah, when there's an option not to submit the test scores, students are not doing it. But the question here is, does it mean that these test scores does not have any influence on the admission decision? Not really. Look at the second graph, which gives us the admission rates for those students who submitted their test scores before and after COVID. So pre-COVID, that out of all, 44% of them got admitted, but the number went drastically up to just 59% post-COVID. So from this, we can conclude that at least in CU Boulder, the test scores have a high influence on the admission ratio. However, does it mean is it the only factor that influenced the admission? No, we'll discuss that in some time. But the question that we are going to answer now is this trend of test scores influencing admission decision post-COVID only in CU Boulder or in the entire United States? Let's find out. We'll do a hypothesis test now, where we're going to test the hypothesis of ratio of applicants admitted with test scores has increased nationwide post-COVID, for which we're going to estimate the population of the entire United admissions. And the sample we have is the CU Boulder's admissions. We have collected two samples here. One is the number of applicants who submitted the test scores pre-COVID, and next is those who submitted post-COVID. If you look at the sample size, it's 35K and 5K, which is safe enough for us to assume that all the sample proportions, let's say if we take multiple samples from different universities, they're going to follow a normal distribution according to central limit theorem. In this test, the population parameters are going to be proportions. We have two parameters. P1 is the admit ratio pre-COVID and P2 is admit ratio post-COVID. And the null hypothesis here is going to be P1 greater than P2 and alternate is going to be P1 less than P2. Now, we decided level of significance as 5% and we plotted the confidence interval for the difference of sample proportions, and that has been displayed in the graph. So if you look at the data, it says that almost 95% of the time, the population proportion difference is going to stay within this limit. However, in our current test, the null hypothesis states that the difference should be greater than or equal to 0, which is clearly not the case here. So that means we can safely assume or we can safely reject our null hypothesis and conclude admittance ratio has increased for those who submit test scores post-COVID nationwide. Now comes the big question. Does it mean that post-COVID universities made test scores optional, but still they show preference for applicants who choose to submit them? Not really. It could be that those who submitted the test scores voluntarily when it is not mandatory might have had a better profile overall. Let's say they would have had a better SOP, LOR, a resume, GPA, etc., and that could have influenced the decision. So from this test, we can conclude that your test scores, GRE and GMAT, still have an influence in the admission decision, but it is not the only decider. We have another interesting hypothesis and EDA that'll be covered by Saijesh, and he'll wrap up the presentation.
This analysis is similar to the previous one. Here, I'll be comparing the admittance ratio of residents versus the non-residents. There is a belief that non-residents might be preferred more than the residents due to the following factors. It might be because non-residents pay a higher tuition fee to increase the diversity, to enhance the reputation, and to go top in the scale ranking. And there are much more factors as well. Let's get deep into the CU Boulder data. From this data, we can see that 75% of the resident applicants are getting admitted and only 45% of the non-residents are getting admitted. It's in the span of 2011 to 2023. From this, we can conclude that residents are having the higher probability to get admitted than the non-residents. As per the initial assumptions that we made, it is completely opposite in this case. So there arises a question, is it specifically for CU Boulder data or is it for the entire US? Let's find out using the two sample hypothesis test. So in this, we consider the hypothesis to be residents are getting a higher acceptance rate than the non-residents in the US university. Let's consider the population data to be the entire US. In this, we have taken the sample to be CU Boulder data, and the number of residents applied is 13K and the number of non-residents applied is 69K. So this is a huge sample, and we assume that it is a normal distribution using CLT. And here, the ratio of residents admitted is 0.75 and for the non-resident is 0.45, as per the graph that we saw before. So in this, the null hypothesis is residents admit ratio is less than non-resident admit ratio. That is nothing but P1 less than equal to P2, and the alternate hypothesis is the opposite of that. That is P1 greater than P2. So we have taken the level of significance to be 0.05, and here we have found the confidence interval for the difference of sample proportion to be 0.293. And there's only less than 0.5% chance that the difference of sample proportion to be 0. So we reject the null hypothesis. We conclude by saying that the admittance ratio for residents is higher than non-residents in US as well. So the initial assumption that we made is incorrect here as well. Let's get into the conclusion part, and I'll be discussing the main key takeaways. So the first and foremost is the trend of master applicants has been increased by 53% over the last 10 years. And the most popular master courses at CU is computer science, data science, electrical, and aerospace. And the third is one of the main key takeaways. Most of the people have submitted their application with or without GRE. If a person has submitted with GRE, like they have a higher influence to get admitted than the person who hasn't submitted. And the fourth is admittance ratio of residents are more than non-residents. It's just not only in CU, it's in the entire US. Thank you.